To sign up for the holy battles, only royal-class shelters could host an arena. The Crystal Palace, while relatively small, was a royal-class shelter. It had a small battle arena, but it was no larger than an average room. After signing up, you also had to match up and duel another person who had signed up in the same shelter. Whichever combatant emerged victorious at a shelter, beating the rest, would then go against winners of other shelters. Only Han Sen resided at the Crystal Palace, so by default, he was the winner. As such, he did not have to battle with any others to qualify. He merely had to wait for the real, juicy Son of God battles to begin. I wonder what rewards I would get if I was to win my final fight, the divinity's bout. Not even the most elite evolvers, who had unlocked their gene locks, could even dream of earning their place amongst the 10 prior Son of Gods. The spirits that compete there must be on the same level as super creatures, for sure. The rewards for being victorious in the divinity's bout and reaching the top 10 should be very good. Might it be a random super beast soul? Or perhaps even a spirit that is above the royal class? Han Sen, merely contemplating the prospects, began getting quite excited. After much consideration, Han Sen decided to adopt his old Persona dollar for Divinity's bout. After Han Sen left his room, the silver fox looked at Han Sen angrily. Then, it quickly spun around and ignored him. It looked like it was still in a bad mood because Han Sen kept the entire peach for himself. Good boy. I ate the peach, yes, but I still have the core. See if you can eat it. Han Sen placed the jewel-like core of the peach behind the silver fox. The silver fox then turned around and bit the peach core without hesitation. Han Sen heard it break and the jewel-like peach core was crushed. Strangely, from out of the core came another core. This one was white. The silver fox then spit the crushed remains of the first layer of the core out of its mouth and quickly swallowed the white nut. You can actually eat the thing, Han Sen said, with wide open eyes. All he was doing was trying to comfort the silver fox. He never expected there to be anything edible inside the core, and that it could eat. The silver fox ate the peach nut and then yawned. It leapt onto Han Sen's shoulder and looked as if it was going to sleep. That's it. You eat my peach core and then go to sleep. Give me a reaction or something. Han Sen looked depressed. The silver fox ate so many good, valuable things each and every day. Yet despite that, it continued to grow so slowly. If the silver fox could grow up quicker, he'd have 2 super creature class powers to fight by his side. Fighting second-generation super creatures would be even easier if that were so. The Jai family provided Han Sen with a few separate choices, each of which pleased him. He decided to accept 5% of shares in Sky Technology. 5% might sound small, but Sky Technology was in the top 20 corporations of the Alliance. Most of the Jai family didn't have a single share in it, as most of the important family members could only have a max share percentage of 1 or 2%. As such, 5 was a very good number. A few core members of the Jai family might have had above 10% of the shares, but for an outsider of the family to receive such shares was tremendous. It was also the first time such a thing had ever occurred. Han Sen was given many different options of gifts to consider off the Kin family. Eventually, he settled on Z-Steel raw stones. The Z-Steel ore always had a lot of contaminants inside it. 1,000 grams of Z-Steel ore could be refined to provide only 5 grams of pure Z-Steel metal. The Z-Steel that was refined was really hard, but very brittle. Its fragility and stern rigidity rendered it almost unusable as a weapon or electrical component. Refined Z-Steel was more akin to delicate porcelain than metal. It had to be combined with other metals to provide a decent weapon of fair toughness and hardness. But inside the Z-Steel ore, there was a high concentration of rough Z-Steel. It was unknown how these Z-Steel raw stones were created, but they were a little bigger than a man's thumb. Inside them was 50% Z-Steel. Some were even higher, though, and could reach 90%. The Z-Steel raw stones were not only really hard, but also really flexible. They were suitable for weaponry that way. The moment Han Sen saw the Z-Steel raw stones, his mind turned to his peacock crossbow. When Han Sen chose the Z-Steel raw stones, the Kin family also promised they would aid him in the creation of bolts, for grinding Z-Steel raw stone was very complicated work. It would take a long time for the process to be completed, and as a result, it would be a while before Han Sen received the bolts. The Kin family estimated in about half a month they would have finished work on 2 bolts. So, the Kin family would give him 2 bolts every month. Han Sen understood that, since the Z-Steel raw stone was so hard, it was non-reactive to heat, so it could not be melted down. It could only be ground down, slowly, over much time. Brother, did you sign up for Divinity's bout? No, it would be a waste of time. Han Sen smiled. Why not? You should give it a go. You have a kick-ass pet, after all. There's a chance you'll reach a rank in the 10 Son of Gods and make humanity proud. My pet is strong, that much is true. But if I face an opponent stronger than I'll be killed. I'll be dead. Why should I bother? Han Sen shrugged. I suppose you are correct. But if you don't go compete in Divinity's bout, it is practically guaranteed that humanity once again will fail, and not stand a chance of securing a single position. It has been a century, and across that entire time, the top 10 son of gods have been spirits. It's humiliating. That's just how it has to be. Unless we are able to somehow max out our super geno points, we will continue to be unable to compete with them, Han Sen said with a smile. After the call with Tang Zhenliu, many others contacted him, wondering if he was going to participate in Divinity's bout. It looked as if many people wanted to see him compete there. A lot of people sincerely wanted Han Sen to become a son of God to make humanity proud and have their race proudly displayed on the tablet. But Han Sen told them he wouldn't take part in Divinity's bout. Many eyes watched Han Sen, though, and he couldn't even though he wanted to. Many people didn't believe Han Sen was willing to skip the affair, though. Han Sen left the Silver Fox by the Beetle Knight so his doppelganger would appear more authentic. Han Sen was planning on traveling to Devil's Mountain alone. With the angel by his side, however, he wasn't afraid. He wanted to use this opportunity to slay sacred blood creatures and max out his sacred geno points. He hunted many sacred blood creatures in the sea, but because of their large size, eating a lot of them was a slow process. Devil's Mountain was home to many different creatures. Not long after he began ascending the mountain, he caught sight of big gorillas, with a few mutants among them. But someone was already battling with the group of gorillas, which surprised him. He never expected he'd find someone else so bold as to hunt creatures on Devil's Mountain. Han Sen took a closer look and noticed it was Philip. He had a girl nearby him as he fought. The black gorillas were unable to compete with Philip, as he quickly laid waste to each and every one of them. Even the mutant class variants could not withstand many attacks from him, and he looked to be a fiercely powerful warrior. Philip, you are so good. You are so strong and so handsome. The woman had her hands pressed against her chest as she praised Philip. The pupils of her eyes were almost shaped like hearts in adoration. The woman was rather pretty. She had big boobies, long legs, and looked quite young. Her words of encouragement were soft but high-pitched, and they worked like fuel on Philip, stoking the fire of his yearning to do combat. Philip, you are so good. But these creatures are not your level. Let's find some sacred blood creatures for you to go against. Philip, look, someone is there. Han Sen was still observing the view of the canyon before him when he heard the familiar voice ring out. Han Sen turned around and saw Philip and his big-boobed lady friend approaching. He promptly frowned. Philip was one of the leaders of the ice fields, in charge of the Philip shelter. He wasn't a dumb, foolhardy man, and Han Sen was surprised at his willingness to bring a lady up Devil's Mountain. Philip did not see him as Han Sen, due to Han Sen being clad in golden armor. What is your name, my friend? Philip asked, while looking him over. The golden armor was not exclusive to Dollar, as many people possessed it in the second god's sanctuary. It was because of this that Philip wasn't quick to assume Han Sen was anyone particularly special, least of all Dollar. What is it? Han Sen did not answer Philip's question. He merely replied with another. If you want to traverse this perilous mountain, perhaps we should team up. We can watch each other's backs, Philip said. Sorry, but I prefer traveling alone, Han Sen coldly responded. When the lady heard him say this, she didn't look as happy as she once did. She blurted out, you are so ungrateful. Philip is a cornerstone of the Union here. He is owner of one of the goddess shelter's armies. He is Philip, as in the Philip army. He wanted to help you. Thank you, but no thank you. I have a personal obligation to fulfill. Perhaps our paths will cross again soon. Han Sen wasn't interested in accompanying Philip in the presence of his girl. This man does not know his place. Ignore him. Let's go. The woman, who was clutching Philip's arm, tugged strongly. Then they both departed for the valley. Friend, our encounter here is fate. Why can we not go together? After that, Philip lowered his voice even further, to a point where even Han Sen almost had trouble hearing, and said, Friend, do me a favor here. I'll give you 2 mutant beast souls. What favor? Han Sen inquired. Pretend you and I argue, then we feign a fight. Throw the fight and then pretend to be terrified, running away as I chase you from behind. That's all you need to do. 1 mutant beast soul now and another you can come claim at the Philip shelter. You must have heard of the name Philip before, yes. Then you know a man of such reputation would not fail to fulfill their debt. Philip was again speaking in a quiet voice. Give me 2 sacred blood beast souls and I'll think about it. Han Sen understood what Philip truly wanted. As much as he would have liked to impress his girl, He couldn't avoid venturing any further into Devil's Mountain without offending her. Friend, that is daylight robbery. I only asked you to put on a show. 2 mutant beast souls is a generous offer for such a deed, Philip said with a furrowed brow. Ordinarily, yes, it isn't too bad an offer, but I have something quite important to do today. Time is precious for me right now, so the price is 2 sacred blood beast souls, Hansen responded. Brother, 2 sacred blood beast souls is too much. Philip continued to frown. That's okay. I have an alternate way for you to get what you need, a method that requires no effort on your behalf. Hansen smiled. What method would that be? Philip gave Hansen a confused look. It's simple. When Hansen spoke, he moved. A gold shadow flashed in front of the lady. The woman was suddenly shocked, and she looked ready to scream. But before she could, Hansen slapped the back of her neck and she fainted. There you go. See? That'll cost you nothing. Now you can go pretend that you saved her. Hansen handed Philip the unconscious woman and then left him, venturing onto the canyon. Friend, you can't leave. You are in trouble. When Philip picked up the unconscious woman, his face changed. Friend, I was trying to help you. Hansen smiled at Philip. But Philip looked troubled and said, I wanted to take her away from Devil's Mountain. I wasn't interested in this woman at all. But after what you have done, if you do not stay, I will be in trouble when she wakes up. You want to hand me over to her? Hansen looked at Philip. Of course not, you were just helping me, after all. Philip ground his teeth and continued to say, you should just go. Don't mention our encounter to anyone else and do your best to stay out of this woman's sight in the future. Hansen shrugged his shoulders and resumed his journey towards the canyon. Hansen helped Philip, due to him being a partner of the goddess Shelter. He never expected this to happen. He was trying to do good, despite the negative result. Philip held the woman in his arms and walked away with the intent of leaving the mountain. But after a few steps, he stopped. He turned to look at Hansen, who was on his way into the canyon, and suddenly became very curious. Anyone who was willing to enter this place alone had to be quite powerful, and this intrigue led him to want to know exactly how powerful this person he met was. When Hansen entered the canyon, numerous butterflies madly fluttered their way towards him from every direction. Philip knew these butterflies and knew that some of them were mutant class. The man in golden armor did not hesitate, however. He continued walking, paying no heed to the butterflies that now clung to his body. Strangely, he just allowed them to be on him. It was like the butterflies were playing around him, and it made for quite a lovely picture. Philip was shocked at what he was seeing, and his jaw dropped. It remained open for quite some time. The butterflies were poisonous, besides the fact that they were mutant class. If you were bitten by them or dusted with the poisonous powder the wings carried, you'd fall incredibly ill. Even Philip would not dare venture into the canyon with those butterflies about. But there the man went, not caring about the toxic butterflies all around him. He allowed them to hang on him or fly around. But the butterflies didn't bite through his armor, nor did they poison him. It was shocking. Suddenly, from out of a light that encompassed a particular bush, a white butterfly appeared. It approached the gold shadow, which shocked Philip and caused him to say aloud, "Careful, my friend. That is a sacred blood class ghost butterfly. If you get poisoned, your body will rot until there is nothing left but fizzled bones." The man seemed to hear what he said, as he turned around and nodded back in Philip's direction. The sacred blood ghost butterfly was already floating around Hansen, however. It was indeed like a ghost. The white ghost butterfly's body was strange, and it was how it received its namesake. Even elites who could attack with blistering speed had trouble striking this white ghost. The white ghost was going to land on the golden man, but he then quickly raised his right hand and trapped the white ghost butterfly between his fingers. The butterfly fluttered its wings repeatedly, attempting to escape his fingers. The fingers were like prison bars, and despite its desperate struggle for escape, it could not free itself. Tang! The man clenched his hand into a fist and the scary white butterfly was crushed inside, its blood seeping from his palm. A scary white ghost butterfly was crushed in an instant and he was not poisoned at all. With no delay, he continued his descent through the canyon. His body was still a post for numerous butterflies, however, and he continued to allow them to just land on him. Beneath the morning light, between the vetiver, the butterflies trailed the gold shadow on its travel. Philip was frozen whilst watching all this. This man cannot be Dollar, can he? The gold shadow disappeared out of sight, which prompted Philip to snap out of his daze and react. When this thought entered his head, he couldn't help but speak it out. But the man was already long gone, and it was too late for Philip to ask. He spoke to himself again, saying, "Drat. I should have asked him his name again. Perhaps he really is Dollar." The reason Philip did not ask for his name again was to protect the man. If Zuyuan asked about him when she awoke, he wouldn't be able to tell her anything about him, and that would be the truth. He didn't even see the person's face, so he had very little to go on. It would have been better that way, so that was why he did not ask again. But now Philip regretted his decision. He liked watching Dollar fight a lot, and he always dreamed of meeting him. He very well could have been Dollar, and if he had let the opportunity of meeting him pass him by, he'd be depressed. Although he wanted to go deeper into the canyon and ask the person whether or not he was Dollar, seeing Zuyuan unconscious in his arms, he gave up the idea. He couldn't venture in there while carrying a passed-out woman. Han Sen was very happy right now. He had managed to squeeze the white ghost to death in his hand and heard the charming, oh so familiar voice call out to him. Sacred blood creature hunted, white ghost butterfly. The beast's soul has not been acquired. Consume its flesh to obtain a random numeric amount of mutant genopoints, ranging from 0 to 10. Although he did not receive its beast soul, Han Sen was still quite happy. The butterfly was so small, he could gobble it down in 1 or 2 bites. Eating a raw butterfly like this, however, would not have sat well in his tummy. So, he found a nice little alcove in the canyon to rest in. He started a fire and began cooking the butterfly with oil. He added some spices, and the end result smelled pretty good. It was like a dish from another planet, which he called fried silkworm. This is very nutritious. Han Sen had lived here for a very long time and no longer felt disgusted eating such things. He munched on the white butterfly with glee. It tasted pretty good, particularly after the voice that told him of his increase in sacred genopoints. The gross feeling of dining on a bug quickly evaporated. After eating the butterfly, his sacred genopoints number raised by 6. This meant his total of sacred genopoints had reached 72, and it wasn't far from maxing out. Han Sen packed his stuff and continued to travel. Then, he suddenly heard a strange noise coming from beyond a canyon wall. It sounded as if something was digging through the rock. Han Sen was alerted by the sound of digging and quickly looked at the canyon wall. The wall was dark green and looked to be really hard. But in the corner of the wall, something had opened a crack. Inside the crack, Han Sen could see the shuffling of a white claw, and the crack began to grow in size. Han Sen did not know what was behind it, especially here in Devil's Mountain. Is that a pangolin? Han Sen watched the dark green creature from behind the rock and thought it looked like a pangolin. But if it was able to dig the dark green cliffside, it was far stronger than the average pangolin. When the dark green pangolin exited the tunnel it had dug, it ran off. Then, he noticed a purple ant, about the size of a fist, come trailing after it. There were a number of these ants and their bodies looked like jade. There were about 20 of them, and they seemed to be giving chase to the pangolin. No way. If I recall, pangolins are practically anteaters. Why in the world is this thing getting chased by ants? Han Sen was puzzled by the scene. The purple ants did not chase the pangolin far, for it seemed as if they weren't very fond of sunlight. When they reached the edge of the shadows, they quit their pursuit and ran back to the hole they had emerged from. Han Sen pulled out his peacock crossbow that was loaded with a raven feather, took aim, and fired at one of the purple ants. The bolt instantly pierced through its body. After all, it was a berserk super crossbow. With a super bolt, few creatures could ever hope to withstand its power. Sacred blood creature hunted, subterranean devil ant. The beast's soul has not been acquired. Consume its flesh to obtain a random numeric amount of mutant genopoints, ranging from 0 to 10. What? This is a sacred blood creature. Han Sen almost jumped up. There were at least 20 ants that had emerged from the newly formed tunnel, yet he couldn't believe what he was hearing. After one of the devil ants was killed, the rest of them started going crazy, skittering around in search of the foe that had slain one of them. Because Han Sen was quite far away from them, they did not become aware of his presence there. Going unnoticed was a rare opportunity, so he wasn't willing to let this chance pass him by. He brought up the peacock crossbow once more and fired repeatedly. Each bolt found a target, numbering another 5 kills. The sacred blood announcements continued to ring inside his head, one after another. It almost made Han Sen squeal with excitement. It was true that by eating the same sacred blood creature multiple times, the amount of sacred genopoints he'd get would decrease after each subsequent ant. That didn't really matter, though, due to the fact he only needed another 30 genopoints. The raven bolts had all been used up, just in time for Han Sen to be spotted by the ants. Frantically, they skittered in his direction. Seeing more than a dozen sacred blood ants rush towards him in such a manner was a frightening sight. The ants were indeed fast, but for a man like Han Sen, they were nothing. He summoned his battle mode Little Angel. The Little Angel's hand swung her greatsword and diced an ant like a stroke of lightning. 14 foes to counter, but before the angel, they were nothing. It only took her a second to slay them all. I'm a handsome man and I collect ants. I hold a big bag and I got the biggest ants. Han Sen began singing a favorite song of his as he picked up the ants and stuffed them into a bag he had brought with him. The canyon wall near the small tunnel erupted into a thick dusty plume that spat out a number of rocks like meteors. A dog-sized, dark purple ant emerged, screaming with a shrill voice at Han Sen. Then, like a shadow, it sprinted towards Han Sen at a blisteringly fast pace. Han Sen was shocked. He brought out his flaming Rex spike to block the incoming attack, but the little angel dashed in front of him to clash with the giant purple ant on his behalf, greatsword raised. Dong! The transparent greatsword struck the dark purple ant's head. The shell did not crack, but the blow let out an amazingly strong force. The little angel's body was knocked backwards into Han Sen and they were both sent flying 8 meters backwards into the cliffside wall behind them. Han Sen spit some blood out. Although the hit was not life-threatening, it made his chest burn something frightful. The little angel moved, preparing to strike the dark purple ant again. But this time, the little angel did not strike from the front. She whizzed by the ant from a multitude of directions. Her greatsword was poised to strike, and every dash and direction she went, she hit the ant. The giant ant had formidable control of its claws, however, and it managed to block every attack. This devil ant king is too powerful. It's far stronger than the little angel. Even her greatsword can't pierce its shell. It cannot be a berserk super creature. Could it? Han Sen was shocked, seeing what he was. But then again, ants were strange creatures. While the little angel fought with the devil ant king, Han Sen quickly unlocked his Dongxuan Sutra's gene lock. The life aura was activated, and through it, Han Sen was able to observe the energy flow of the devil ant king. This guy is a second-generation super creature. This brought a modicum of joy to Han Sen as he tried to learn its energy flow. Although his purpose coming here was not to kill the subterranean devil ant king, that was fine. He wouldn't pass by an opportunity such as this. The subterranean devil ant king's life energy flow was complicated. Han Sen could not remember it so soon, so all he could do for the time being was observe for some time and watch the fight unfold. The little angel was using her flying abilities, and although she seemed capable of keeping up with it, killing the beast outright was a different matter altogether. Her angel greatsword could not sever its limbs or crack its shell, and without being able to do that, killing it would prove to be of great difficulty. After Han Sen remembered its energy flow, he summoned his flaming Rex spike and mustered the energy of the elephant Rex strike. He waited for the right moment to deliver the Ant King one massive hit. Even if the strike didn't kill it, it might provide an opening for the little angel to finish it off. Han Sen watched for a while, and when the chance arose, the trumpeting of elephants fueled a power inside his body. The power surged into the flaming Rex spike, which swung down onto the Ant King. The Devil Ant King knew Han Sen was attacking, but it was unable to dodge. It was not because it was not fast enough, it was because it was recovering from blocking another attack that was delivered by the little angel. During its recovery, it didn't have the energy to deflect Han Sen's hit. Han Sen's power was far inferior to the Devil Ant King's. Normally, he wouldn't dare something like this, but he excelled in the realm of tactics, deduction, and prediction, particularly. He had foreseen how the Ant King would react, so he committed to this deadly strike the exact moment he knew the Ant King would not be able to dodge, block, or even retaliate. The flaming Rex spike brutally struck the Ant King's waist. Han Sen thought this must have been its weak point, but all that sounded from the strike was the call of beaten metal, and that was exactly what it felt like when he hit the ant. The flaming Rex spike left his hand and spun through the air about 10 meters away. It hit the cliffside. With such force, Han Sen's hands were left numb and his arms almost felt as if they were going to break. The little angel, however, used this opportunity to make a move of her own. She used her greatsword, battering the point Han Sen had dented. On the fourth slash, the shell cracked a few inches, enough to expose the ant's white flesh. The Ant King panicked and quickly returned to the tunnel it had emerged from, suffering brutally. Han Sen was very weak right now, though. He felt as if he could barely stand, let alone chase after it. Under Han Sen's command, the little angel chased the Ant King down into the pit it had come from. But he also ordered her to return if the Ant King still proved to be too formidable. He didn't want her taking any unnecessary risks, and he wanted her to prioritize her own safety above all else. The Ant King had only been dealt a small amount of damage, and it still contained most of its power. It was still stronger than the little angel, without question. This was the great boon of being an ant. Few could fight one, even if they were on par with it. In the tiny cave she chased it down, she would have limited room to dodge. If it came down to a fight of strength versus strength, odds were far in favor of the ant winning. Han Sen summoned Princess Yin and Princess Yang. He brought them out so they could collect the devil ants' corpses, while he dragged his own tired body down after the Ant King. He still did not feel safe, and he worried that the little angel would fight the Ant King until she died. Hansen, while he was down there, was busy inspecting this cavern he had discovered, deep beneath the earth. With great observation, he surmised that the entirety of the mountain above had been hollowed out by the ants. It was like a massive subterranean kingdom for the ants. But what Hansen did not understand was that, inside this ant nest, aside from this king and the 20 sacred blood ants he had laid waste to earlier, there weren't any other ants. That was strange. For a nest this big, there should have been many more ants in there. The fact that there was only one ant king was strange, as well. Did that pangolin eat all the other ants? The pangolin's life force was a little bit stronger than a sacred blood creature, but not as strong as a super creature. The little angel was still battling the Ant King, but the Ant King had retreated into a little cave. Its shell was hard enough as it was, and with its power it made it incredibly hard for the little angel to deal it damage. But now, the wound around its waist had already healed. It looked like new, as if it hadn't been dealt a single hit. This Ant King is sick. I'm not even sure if I'll be able to kill it. Hansen was getting a little depressed, but just as he thought of giving up, something else lurked in the dark. The pangolin had returned, and it peeped at the battlers from a tunnel like a little thief. The pangolin watched how the little angel and Ant King fought as it shimmied along the walls of the cavern. Its scales were colored exactly like the rock, in a dark green color. Unless he paid close attention, he'd have had a difficult time spotting it, creeping its way up. Quickly, the pangolin entered a cave near the Ant King and then drilled out another cave beside it. After that, it disappeared. Hansen watched what it was doing with curiosity, and then decided to follow it into the tunnel it had just created. He crawled along the tunnel, and scrambled over the dusty rocks without hesitation. When Hansen saw what was inside the cave, his jaw dropped and his face froze. The giant cave was like a warehouse, stocked with white eggs that looked like ping-pong balls. Quite clearly, the eggs belonged to the devil ant. The pangolin-like creature looked joyful as it began munching on the eggs. Hansen climbed out of the tunnel that had been dug out by the pangolin, spooking it. It turned around to look at Hansen with alarm, but it did not attack. Hansen took aim at the pangolin with the peacock crossbow as a precaution but felt conflicted. The pangolin was very strange. He did not know anything about it, and his own body was so weak that he didn't want to start a fight he might not be able to finish. They both froze, eyes locked. Neither of them knew what to think of the other. The pangolin rolled its beady eyes and then stood up on 2 legs like a human. Its claws pointed towards the entrance. Hansen understood what it meant. The pangolin was pointing towards the Ant King's location, and it did not want Hansen to alert it to their presence. This guy's intelligence is no less than the Fox King I encountered in the first shelter. Hansen gave the pangolin a puzzled look. The pangolin then pointed to the eggs on the floor. It pointed to Hansen and then pointed to itself. It was a funny little creature, but again, Hansen understood what it was suggesting. It was telling Hansen that there were many eggs for the both of them, and that they were free to eat as many as they desired, as long as they didn't disturb each other. Hansen looked at the pangolin, then he released his draw of the peacock crossbow. The pangolin went down on the ground again and resumed its feast. Hansen did not feel comfortable in the presence of the pangolin. He made sure to watch it, in between his observations of the cave and the eggs that populated it. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.